Well, we did it. Event one of the Greater Culture Classic is in the books. Chelsea and I took it on because we wanted to test it out to see what all of you might be experiencing as you work through this one. So, event one, it's an AMRAP, it's a max lift, it's an opportunity to share the load with your partner, and then we get to lift heavy. So, let's talk about what the workout is. It starts with a 10-minute AMRAP, and we're going to go 8 ground to overheads. We're going to go 7 synchro burpees over that bar, and then 40 double unders for our RX and our intermediate divisions, 60 single unders for the scaled. We decided to try this one out at the RX level. So after you do that 10-minute AMRAP, you get 1 minute to rest, recover, catch your wits, and then 5 minutes to establish a max hang snatch and then a snatch from the floor. And your score is going to be how many rounds and reps you get during the 10-minute AMRAP, and then how much weight combined you and your partner are able to lift. So Chelsea, any strategy for this one that we had going into it?
Well, we as a group, we are not jumping right now. So you definitely had to take on a little bit more of those double unders, and by a little bit more, I mean all of them. So that was very helpful. But I think just to kind of break it up so that we were both wanting to move at a pretty fast clip the whole time. So just being able to share the work so that was possible was the main goal that we had.
Yeah, and I think this is the type of workout where the only thing synchro is the burpees. So if you have a barbell wizard, maybe they do a few more reps. If you have somebody who's very good at the jump rope, maybe they do a few reps there, but you can scheme and break it up however you'd like. So we did the workout. We're going to watch it with you here so you can see what our experience was like, and we'll talk through some of the things that maybe we were noticing or having as we were working through it. So let's take a look.
I really would have liked to have not been the one that was closer to the camera on this workout here. It wasn't my prettiest workout.
If nothing else, at least you look good doing the workout with that shirt there.
Yeah, you just wait until the snatches come into play.
So right out the gate, we were thinking singles, and so talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, that 95 is just a little bit out of reach for me personally to cycle it comfortably, and I probably could have warmed up a little bit better and held on to it a bit more, but the singles felt good to start and kind of get it going.
And knowing that I was going to do a few more double unders, we started off with 5 clean and jerks for you, 3 for me, and then we get into those bar facing burpees where you've got to be facing each other. The synchro part is at the bottom, that chest hitting the floor, and then you can get over the bar however you'd like. You can jump, you can step, doesn't matter. We just got to get over that bar.
Yeah, it was like each time we got to these bar facing burpees, I kind of remembered that we were doing them. I don't know, I would black out before it or something, because sometimes I would walk away too far, or I would kick it, or I wasn't counting it all, so that was not helpful either.
And 7 is right at that number where you could really try and put the pedal down, jump back, jump up, jump over, and be very quick with it. Or maybe this is your opportunity to pace just a little bit if you know somebody's picking up that rope and getting into those double unders. One thing I noticed with the double unders is the first couple sets felt pretty good, arms felt good, breathing was pretty good. Took a peek at the clock there. That first round was just over a minute 20. So now all of a sudden you start playing that game in your head of all right, well, we're probably going to get 6, 7 plus rounds if we stay on this pace. And now you try and figure out, okay, well, how many reps is that actually going to mean for me? And I think we stayed with the 5 and 3s here for a little while.
Yeah. Until I was I feel like he probably needs a little bit more time to breathe. So then I was I'll definitely take some more reps.
And what do you think for athletes who are debating about going clean and jerk versus the snatch? Because, you look at it, the snatch might be a little bit quicker if we're trying to accumulate those reps. The clean and jerk maybe gives us a little bit better chance to breathe, move a little bit smoother, steadier. So for athletes who are debating one or the other, any thoughts there?
I think if you're really trying to punch it in and lay it down on this kind of workout, then you're going to go snatches and you're probably going to go unbroken. And you're going to alternate movements, not so much alternating reps, because that's definitely going to put a lot more speed into it. I do feel like with us, we kind of capped out on speed. There wasn't much more to be found with how we were doing the movements. So if we did want to go faster, it would have had to been holding onto the bar longer, I could have held on for all 5 reps, or turning it into that snatch and holding on to it the whole time.
Yeah, I had the thought cross my mind for maybe a moment of well, if you're doing 3 reps, maybe you go with those 3 touch and go snatches. But to me, touch and go clean and jerks aren't that much slower. So I think even the singles here, as long as you're staying on the bar and you're just keeping those reps moving forward, you're going to be in good shape as a team.
Yeah, I think if that weight was 85, I would still do clean and jerks, but anything below that would have been snatches just to get them over with.
And the thing about the burpees here is just kind of finding that rhythm that, both partners are working sort of at their own rhythm, and you got to find the synchronicity there. So we've got a nice rhythm here of a little step back. We're both hitting the chest about the same time. You like the jump back method. I'm more of a step back, step up, and then kind of pop over the top there. So when you're thinking about burpees, what's going on in your head?
Get on the ground and get off again. And make sure you don't get up too fast, because a few of them I almost got up before you, and I had to pay attention to that. I think you're faster jumping over the bar, so you get to the ground quicker, which is why I felt like I had to jump back, because I stand up a little bit more and take a little bit longer to get over the bar. So you're fast over it and I'm a little bit slower there. So that was why I had to jump back a little bit more to kind of catch up.
And that's one of those conversations that's nice to have before you get into the event of hey, who's the faster burpier? Because for that movement, you're going to have to move at the pace of whoever is a little bit slower on that movement. So if you're somebody who loves to jump back, jump up, and is very quick, then you're probably going to want to slow your pace down just a hair there. And so now you're going into some cluster sets. So you like to do a few touch and goes, drop, get back to it, a few touch and goes. How is that helpful for folks who maybe are trying to break up the barbell?
Yeah, so 5 out the gate for me at that weight is just, I know I'm going to slow down the pace or the tempo of my rep. So I know if I keep it in smaller sets, I'll still be able to keep the pace higher. Where if I was doing 5 unbroken, I would kind of sit in the front rack or sit with it in my hands, and that would just slow us down too much.
And like you said, in terms of speed, we're just passing over the halfway mark of this workout, and there's not a ton of space here to make up additional time unless you set, like you said, we're going touch and go. Maybe we switch over to snatches. You're going clean reps on those double unders. And so for me, some of these sets went pretty smooth. Some of them had a break or two in there, trying to just get back to accumulating those reps as quickly as you can. So for teams who maybe have 2 pretty proficient jumpers, is there a way that might be ideal to break up the 40 double unders, or does it make sense for just one partner to knock them all out?
With 40, I think one partner can knock them all out, and you just kind of alternate who is knocking them out. You can alternate who does the double unders and who does the ground to overhead, and that way, you stay a little bit fresher. I think probably your jumping muscles got a little tired there from burpees into the double unders, and it would have helped if I could have picked up the rope a few times. Give you a little break.
Yeah, what I noticed with this one, especially given the way that we broke it up, is this was a much more heart rate focused workout for me. That weight is challenging, but knowing I only have to do 2 or 3 reps, feel pretty good about it. But it's immediately we're going into burpees or into that jump rope. So this turned into a breathing workout for me where, there's not a lot of pacing, there's no barbell to slow you down. So it's more about, can you operate with that heart rate up and elevated a little bit here?
Yeah, on that set, since I did 6, I forgot that your 2 would be pretty quick. And I was walking away, and then I was oh, crap. Oh, and then I wasn't counting again and almost did another burpee. So there's me just having fun.
Yeah, and you and I are tackling this workout. We did not have a judge out there for us, so we were counting our own reps, and teams are allowed to do that. But if you do have a judge, it is helpful for them to just keep track of where you're at, especially if you have a moment like this where you're just tripping a bunch on double unders. They can let you know where you're at, or maybe the other partner jumps in. So this will happen, though. Sometimes you get fatigued and you feel like all the mechanics are the same and something's just catching or tripping, and it happens, especially in the back end of a workout. So
what is nice, though, is that because I couldn't jump, it didn't matter. We could still do the workout, which was helpful.
Yeah, exactly. And now as we get into sort of this final 2-ish minutes, if you're looking at a 10-minute AMRAP, this is starting to be that time where you're hey, if we've got something in the tank, we want to start to push the intensity a little bit. And I thought you did a great job of staying on that barbell. And there was moments here where you might not be able to see it, but there's some communication going on there where you're just shouting out a number of how many you're going to do. So I knew as I'm sitting there getting ready how many reps I'm going to have to step in and do. So those little things are helpful in these sequences where you might have a plan. Hey, you're doing all 8, or we're going to break it up, and all of a sudden things change
Yeah.
because the workout's not going the way you'd like, or 8 felt really rough, and now you're like, ooh, I'm not going to be able to do that again. So having those little moments of communication can be helpful, especially during a partner workout.
For that one, that was our last set of 6 and 2. I was seeing the clock, and I was like, if I do singles of the 6 again, it's going to take too long for us to get as many reps as we can. So that's why on this next one, we switch back to the 5-3. So it's like I can keep that a little bit tighter, and then your 3 is much faster. So it made sense to kind of switch back to it.
Yep. And for me, one of the things with the jump rope, some sets, like I said, went a little bit better than the others, but always trying to fall back to those mechanics of, like, for me, I like to think my elbows are pulled back. I like to think I'm just flicking my wrists. I know sometimes when we get tired, those hands can go a little bit wider, shortening that rope, which makes it challenging to keep a nice arc flying overhead. So really coming back to the mechanics, especially when you're tired.
On this round, I was definitely in my head like, you better lock it out, because there were a few where it's real close. But, I would count it.
Yeah.
I mean, it was right on the line.
Which is a good point there. So what we're looking for here is that barbell to be overhead. We want to see those knees, hips, and shoulders opened up, extended. That's going to let us know you've hit that rep. And there is a tendency sometimes with either clean and jerks or even snatches where we still have that flex in our knee, and we're like, oh, I'm good. But really, we want to see that full lockout.
Well, I wore my black pants on purpose.
That's
so
right.
You wouldn't be able to tell.
Thankfully, we're not squatting below parallel here. So this is a moment in the workout too where, double unders, you can get a lot of reps in a short amount of time. So even though there was 20 seconds on the clock, you could rep out a pretty good set here. I get a trip, come back in, another quick trip. You're just like, oh no, you start to get a little bit frustrated, but there's 5 or 6 seconds of reps that I missed out on there, but we were able to knock it out. And honestly, I don't even know how many rounds and reps we got there. We might have to go back to the tape and count.
I was ready though. I was standing by that bar. I was ready to get one if you were done.
If we got back to it, yeah. And so now we get this 1 minute rest before we get to lift heavy. So when you start to think about a max lift of any kind, especially after a Metcon, what are some of the things going through your mind as you're now getting ready to start lifting and sort of changing how you're framing that workout?
So, you want to take that little bit just to kind of catch your breath. And I had a little bit of an advantage because you were jumping at the end. So, I was already kind of resting. So you want to switch off, get the breathing right first. And then you don't want to go out too aggressively. You're pretty warm, which is nice, but you don't want to be throwing on too much weight. You definitely want to get one in the bag first and then make some jumps from there, which is why I was ready to go before you were. I had a little bit more rest. You changed your shoes. And after, I think it was my second lift, I was like, oh, I probably should change my shoes, because I definitely would have preferred to have a little bit more stability in that movement.
Yeah, and so the lift here is 1 hang snatch and 1 snatch. So the hang snatch, we're going to stand that barbell all the way up, and you can keep the barbell anywhere above the knees, fair game for that hang position. And then the second lift is going to come from the floor. You can catch it in power, squat, split, any of those. So another thing that I think is helpful is whatever style of snatch you want to end your lifts with, I would do that from the get-go. I know sometimes people say, well, I can power this. Let me get a rep or 2 in power. And then as you build the weight, next thing you know, it's time to squat, and you haven't squatted yet. And now all of a sudden that barbell maybe crashes on you a little bit more than you'd like. So figuring out, if I'm going to squat snatch this, then let's do that maybe from the get-go, just so that you get some of those reps. You're like, oh, that's what my legs are going to feel like. That's what this pull is going to feel like as we go into it.
That's a good point, because when I knew I had to squat it, I definitely had a little mental oh, you probably should have squatted those ones before, because now you have to squat it and you haven't practiced at all.
Yep. So I'm getting my first lift in here, about 2 minutes of rest time. So once again, find something that you can get on the board, get that feeling under your belt. And for me, going into this one, 5 minutes of work. In my mind, I was thinking 4 lifts. So I worked backwards from what would be maybe the home run swing, or if things went well, what do I want to end at? And then, went back from there.
Yeah, I was like, I probably should have squatted on the first one that I did. The shoulders were a little bit more fatigued than I was expecting on this one. Normally I can get a good shrug and leave it a little bit closer to the body, but those, I'm thankful for this angle right now because those were hitting some pretty rainbows and you'll see them get away from me a little bit more later. But that was something I was not expecting to be as fatigued as it was when I went into it.
Mm-hmm.
The hips felt okay, but the shoulders were definitely lacking.
Yeah. And being in North Carolina, it's a little bit humid, so the sweat was starting to get a little bit more real, especially as we got deeper into it. And I did notice that, like holding onto the bar for even just 2 lifts, a little bit of sweat on that hand doesn't make you feel great about that connection. So chalking up, trying to get those hands dried up as much as possible. And so this is my second lift, and I feel pretty good about bigger jumps. I like to hit something that makes me feel confident and then make a bigger jump. So my first lift, I think, was 155. That was 185. So those 20 to 30% jumps up until you start to hit, 75, 80 plus percent. Mm-hmm. Now we're like, all right, maybe we start to make those jumps a little bit smaller.
I was just going up by 5s. That's the only plan I had. Just see what happens.
Do you have any thoughts around when people start to ask about percentages or like, okay, if I'm doing a hang snatch or I'm doing a full snatch or a complex, do we have any concept of, hey, this is roughly percentage-wise what we might be able to hit?
I should have a better way to explain it, but for me personally, it is a bit of a feel thing. I know I relate it more towards what I can do in a Metcon. Like if I can do unbroken snatches at this weight this many times, then that would kind of relate back to a complex. Even if the complex is like a hang, a power, and a full or something like that. If I've done power snatches at this weight this many times, I can kind of correlate that to what I'm doing, not so much percentage-wise.
Yeah. And that hang to start is going to limit, the amount that we can lift a little bit. So making sure we feel really good about that first lift and then knowing, hey, I've got more time to travel, a little bit more distance for this barbell on the second lift. If we can get that first one, make it successful, you can take that bar to the hips, take a breath or two. If you need a quick little re-grip, we certainly can do that. And then as we start to get towards the end here, this is where this is
a good one.
I'm excited to watch this one. As long as hands are on the bar and the bar's off the floor at the buzzer, we're good. So this is Chelsea's last lift. A great save, incredible save there with the shoulders flexing a little bit forward. And now we're working. Can we get that last one? Yes.
After I saved the first one, I was like, well, you got to hit the next one,
Yeah, and this is where if you're going to swing for the home run, plan to take that lift a minute to minute and a half prior. I'm picking it up here right at the time just to give it an attempt here. So we've got 225 on the bar. The first rep was max efforting. I was like, re-grip, big breath in, and there's just nothing there in that last rep. So finished off at 205, I believe, for me, and that was a big jump to go from 205 to 225 in the last one. But it's a fun opportunity to test yourself, especially in a competition. Sometimes folks can hit PRs, big lifts, because of the adrenaline, because of you've just done 10 minutes of warming up to it, and you've got a chance to build. We saw that in some of the semifinals as well. Athletes are doing an 800-meter run, going into a snatch, and within 3 attempts are close to or at max effort. So you're going to have that ability to push it a little bit and test yourself out in this one. So having watched it back now, any thoughts or things that you would either recommend, do different, or perspectives?
Well, first of all, I'm glad that it didn't look as ugly as I thought it was, because I was like, oh my God, this is all on camera, and that was trash basket. But I guess, it was nice we had a very forgiving angle for some of the stuff, so that was nice for sure. Because it's a partner workout, don't unilaterally make these decisions, but we probably could have pushed it a little bit more because I would suggest doing maybe some practice rounds, maybe like 2 minutes or 3 minutes of practice, kind of see where you're going to go with it, because you can really push this pace, especially if that weight is in your wheelhouse. So if you want to get a good score, you could push it more. Now, if you're deciding that by yourself, you really got to let your partner know too, because if you're going ham sandwich and they're not following, it can get kind of interesting for sure.
If the wheels fall off and you do 8 in the first round, the next time you go to the barbell and they're expecting you to do 8 and you're like, I got 2 or 3. It's like, whoa, what's going on here? So I think for this one, figure out what your strengths are. If you're good at breathing heavy type workouts, maybe take more of the double unders or really push the burpees. If you're somebody who really loves the barbell, maybe you take on a few more reps there. But I think you can push the pace a little bit faster than you think you can. And then when it comes to the snatch, for me, I think the biggest thing is using your legs as much as you can, especially from that hang position. We have a tendency to want to pull with the shoulders and make it a very arm-dominated movement. But those legs are going to come in really handy because your shoulders might be a little bit fatigued from the first part.
Yeah.
And I think, plan for 3 to 4 lifts, give it a go, see what you've got. We'll be excited to see you on the leaderboard. You've got until June 11th to get signed up, get this first workout recorded, uploaded into StreamFit, and we're excited to see where you stack up on the leaderboard.